Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining this ISC special membership meeting. I'm sure we will have more people joining us in the next few minutes, so that is fine. I'm happy you're all here. We want to provide you with an introduction to what ISC is, what we do, and how you can engage and how you can work with us, and also just a little insight in how our communication works and how you can have a look at our site and find things you might find useful or interesting. Today we have from our governing board, Melody Burkins, who will give an introduction about ISC. Melody, I will hand over to you a bit later. You can introduce yourself. And we also have a few people from ISC headquarters on the call. Thieme, who will also be talking, is our membership liaison officer. A lot of you will know her by now. She's very active and in contact with a lot of our members. I myself, I'm operations director at ISC. And we want to use this time. We've said 1.5 hours. It depends on how it goes. I think we want to use the time for you to really get to know us. I'm sure some of you already know us very well. Others might not know too much about us. So I think it's good to use this opportunity. Melody will give an introduction, and then Anne will give some more detailed guides for you, and which can be very helpful. And after that, we would like to have a questions and answers section. So please feel free at that moment to ask questions, and we will try to answer them as well as possible. During our sessions, we also have a few live polls. So we will be asking you a few things about us and about the way we interact. I hope you are able to participate in those, and we'll directly be able to give you the results. And we'll draw our conclusions from whatever you fill out in these polls. I would like to ask you to all mute during the speakers, and we can then, when the question and answer session starts, you can raise your hand by the, I don't know, I'm sure you've gotten a lot of experience with Zoom at this moment after this very interesting year. But if you don't know yet, if you go to the participants button on the bottom, and you can find, no, it's not it's in the bottom on the right-hand corner. There's a little blue hand that you can press to raise your hand, and then we can ask you to speak up and ask your question. But we'll come to that later. I would now like to start to ask Melody to start her presentation and tell us something about the International Science Council. Thank you all.
Oh, thank you, Charles, and thank you everyone who has come in. Again, I'm Melody Burkins. I'm actually a member of the International Science Council's governing board. It's one of the ordinary members. We'll show you a little slide on that. I'm going to go through these slides. There's a lot of slides with a lot of information. So please don't think you have to know it all. There's going to be information in the chat with links, and then I think a copy of this slideshow can be shared. So it's really just to give everyone an overview of all that's going on with the International Science Council, and to remember that it is an International Science Council that exists because of its members. So if you are already a member, welcome. If you are looking at becoming a member, we would love to have you talk with us more. So with the opening, let me say, let's see if I can do this. I hope I can. It's not quite working, but let me see if I can do one more thing. I will have to have someone advance for me, I think. Next slide.
Try again, should work now, Melody.
I am trying. I'm giving it a little click. It worked in our rehearsal, everyone. But it doesn't seem to be, so let me just ask for next slide. If we can. Thank you. So as I said, many slides we'll have for you, but we're going to in 4 parts here. The first is that we're just going to give you the overview of the International Science Council, history, vision, and mission. We're going to give you a little insight to the core and ongoing activities that we are doing, and how we are a convener and the global voice of science is how we have positioned ourselves for our membership in the world. Our priorities, what are the issues taking us forward right now that we have developed with our members in the 2019 to 2021, the 3-year action plan. And then I will turn it over to Anne for the opportunities section. Next slide, please.
Still no?
No.
Oh, that's weird. Okay, I'll just keep
I will keep trying to figure out why, but thank you.
Okay.
So here's the first essentials. I don't know if it's my computer, but next slide. So first and foremost, this is a nice photo of showing you this is actually the beginning in Taipei in 2018. It seems it's been a while, but the International Science Council was founded in July 2018 after several years of discussions between the International Council for Science and the International Science Council. Again, we're a global membership-based organization, and it took quite a bit of time and a lot of discussions, as you see, voting discussions, many meetings in between to come up with the bylaws and the governing structure for the natural, physical, and social sciences involved in the International Science Council. We also have membership with engineering and academies and medical, but let me go to this slide, thank you. The vision of our council is to advance science as a global public good. And the mission of the council is to be the global voice for science. We do that with and for our members, and those include 125 national and regional scientific organizations, including academies and research councils. I also work with the US National Academies on International Scientific Organizations and chair a board there. The 40 international scientific unions and associations across the natural, physical, and social sciences are part of our membership. We have also 40 international affiliates, including organizations such as the World Academy of Sciences, the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis, as many of you know as IASA, and the Global Young Academy. And we maintain very active partnerships, that's what we do, with other international scientific bodies, the Inter-Academy Partnership, the World Federation of Engineering Organizations, the Global Research Council, and several more. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, I'm part of the governing board. I'm one of the 10 ordinary members. The governing board is 6 officers, a president, president-elect, two vice presidents, secretary, and treasurer, 1 ex officio. Our president is Daya Reddy from the University of Cape Town, South Africa. Peter Gluckman is our president-elect from New Zealand. He's the former chief science advisor to the prime minister in that country. Elisa Rice from Brazil, and Jinghai Li from China are both vice presidents. Next slide. And as we organize, we have standing committees, and the 4 standing committees we have are represented in yellow. Those are the Committee for Science Planning, and that really focuses on our Science Action Plan, which you'll see, well, everything is about the Science Action Plan, but they're one of the guiding pieces for the Science Action Plan. The Committee for Outreach and Engagement, which is hosting this series of webinars. The Committee for Freedom and Responsibility of Science, the Committee for Finance and Fundraising. So those are our core advisory groups. And then we usually have several ad hoc committees as we need them. We're right now working with a small island developing states liaison committee to set up that regional committee, an election committee for our next General Assembly, awards selections, that's new for us as well. And of course, a dues committee. As we grow our membership, we need to keep thinking constantly about our membership and our dues, how we can be accessible and open to all. Next slide, please. And another piece that we have that is new from when we were 2 separate organizations of the Social Sciences Council and the International Council of Scientific Unions, we now have patrons, and these are the first 3. We hope to have, I think, at least up to 12 from all over the world. And right now we have our first 3 are Mary Robinson, former president of Ireland, who is very active in climate change, human rights, and gender equality issues. Ismail Sarah Geldin on issues of freedom and responsibility responsibility of science from Egypt, and Vince Cerf from the United States, often known as one of the fathers of the internet. And there's a quote there from Mary Robinson. She and all of our patrons, and we're again working on having several more, are talking, they're not necessarily, some are scientists themselves, some are not, and the idea is that they are out there speaking about the need for science in public affairs and civic engagement at a level that we may not all always move in, and they can be both our advocates and also our advisors when we need them on strategies for engagement throughout the world and the world's governments. Next slide. So what do we do with all of those people? And you'll hear more as we go through the slides. We convene expertise and influence across scientific fields, disciplines, regions, and stakeholder communities to promote. The first is promote international and integrated research on key global challenges. You'll hear much, we're very connected, of course, to the Agenda 2030. Issues. We try to increase evidence-informed understanding and decision-making at all levels of public policy, discourse, and action. We support the continued and equal development of science systems in all parts of the world. We're not just thinking that science is done and the scientific systems are set. We need to constantly think about them and readjust. And we want to protect scientific freedom and advocate principles for the responsible practice of science across all disciplines. Next slide. And that brings us to some of the core ways we do that. There's a lot of many big statements I just made, but we do break these down very systematically and intentionally into, in this group, you'll see the sponsored and affiliated international scientific bodies with whom we work. Some have been in existence for a very long time and are part of our fabric. Some are new partnerships that we've created. So you can just see the ISC runs through the middle. There are international research programs. If you look at the list, many you may know. Global observing systems, the International Network for Government Science Advice. This is fairly new, and of course, really important in the new understanding of science and policy of how do we work with governments and get the best science advice to those governments. We work with international scientific committees that have been around for a very long time and coordinate with us. And of course, very key is international data bodies, more and more in our data-driven and internet-based world. These are becoming more and more important for us to always connect with and talk with, and you'll see that in our science plan as well. Next slide. So we also work, because you can't do work without funding, we work very closely to talk with funders and international research funding programs. So we talk with the International Science Council, and when I say we, it means we're talking for and with our members about these opportunities and how to make sure that our members and our networks are open to these possibilities. Two examples here that have been moving forward: transformations to sustainability. We work closely with the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, or SIDA, and the Belmont Forum for Global Environmental Change, and Norfus, a network of social science funding agency in the Nordic countries. Also, the leading integrated research for Agenda 2030 in Africa, or shortly LIRA 2030, also supported by SIDA and Bosch. So these are these are examples of oops, did I lose people? No, they're sorry, my internet did something. Sorry about that. These are examples of some work going on, and there's many more. Next slide, please. So another key, of course, if we're working globally on issues of science and information and policy and outreach and engaging with stakeholders, it is critically important for us to be connected to what is going on in the United Nations. And the ISC is a lead coordinator of the UN Major Group for Science and Technology. And it is this work, in this way, we also work with those partners we mentioned before, the World Federation of Engineering Organizations. And we are looking to have a mandate for science at the UN by working with its internal structures. And this has been developing more and more over the past few years, working with the DESA, the economic and social, the economic group that is looking at really focused on the Sustainable Development Goals. This is where the ISC represents the community in the high-level political forum on Sustainable Development Goals. UNESCO, this is a partner that we work on in open science in the ocean decade through the ICO, or the Intergovernmental Oceanographic, IOC, International Governmental Oceanographic Commission. We work with UNEP on environmental issues, and one of our former research programs that's now its own independent group is Future Earth. We work with UNDP, the development program. You'll see a slide on rethinking human development. UNDRR, risk reduction, disaster risk reduction, and of course the World Meteorological Organization, WMO, is one of our partners with the World Climate Research Program. Next slide, please. And in all of these, working with United Nations, we're engaging in these global policy processes and representing science and our membership in the major global policy processes where we have a seat at the table, and we have many networks within the UN and try to create those same networks to our members. We focus on the post-2015 development agenda, which includes, as we mentioned, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, and the new Urban Agenda, which is really focused on sustainable cities and towns under UN Habitat. Next slide. And we also look to our members. There are international scientific initiatives we're supporting with our members. We show some examples here. 2019, IUPAC, the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry, has the International Year of the Periodic Table of Chemical Elements. We agreed that we would strongly support and advocate and distribute information about that program. The ICA, International Commission on Acoustics, I believe, has the International Year of Sound from 2020 to 2021. UNESCO's International Oceanographic Commission has the International Decade from 2021 to 2030 on Science for Sustainable Development. International Union for Pure and Applied Physics has the International Year of Basic Sciences for Development, and on. We do, right now in 2023, you'll hear more, we're going to be hosting a global knowledge dialogue with the Research Council of Oman as part of our General Assembly. Next slide, please. So with so many things going on, you've seen in those slides, many people, many members, many ideas, all trying to come together and convene. Of course, we have to figure out what we can do and what we can lead forward and what we have funding for. And so as we first of all created the International Science Council in 2018, we also had to start thinking immediately with our members right out of the blocks the first year to create this document, an action plan for 2019-2021. It was an iterative document. And this document, which you may have seen, you may not, I'll ask you about that later, but this is an action plan where we worked with our members, partners, and initiatives on a set of targeted priority projects. And we said, we are going to look at these in depth and focus them on with metrics and have an action plan where we take assessment of how they are going, how we work with our members, how did we set the right priorities. So this was our first one out of the blocks, and I have to say it's been very well received. It sets out an agenda for transformative actions across 4 clear domains of where we thought we could have impact and efficacy. And those are the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the digital revolution, science and policy and public action, and the evolution of science and science systems. And right now, for everyone who's on the call, we're going to take a poll, maybe about a minute, to ask you if your familiarity with the ISC action plan. So I'll give you some time to do that. I just filled it out too. And if you look in your chat, you can also see a link to the actual action plan online.
I think we need to give Anne just a few moments to gather the information, and then I think she will present it to us. Exciting moment.
But this is very, oh, look at that. So I can tell you, if you may see this on your screen, but we have 20% of you have not, or about 19, I'll round up to 20, have not yet heard about it. 44% have, 31% of you have read it. That's impressive. Thank you. And about a fifth of you thinking that your organization is involved in some of the projects. So I think that's much better than 0, and it's good to know there's a good bit of engagement, but we still need to move it around. So thank you for that moment. Next slide, please. So to explain again, this is the action plan, and the 4 main areas that we're talking about. I think I'll go into more detail in the next slide on some of the specifics, but again, the 4 are the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So that's a major focus of the action plan. Second is the digital revolution. That is really talking about the, everything from AI to cybersecurity to actually the dissemination of information on internet platforms, and the challenges and benefits of that focus, including some of the issues that goes into the 4th one I won't go into right now. I'll save it for scientific publishing. But on number 3, the science in public policy and in policy and public discourse. How are we moving the evidence that we are understanding from the work of our partners, our members, into that, getting that information into action, into impact, into policy relevant documents and policy relevant spheres as needed, so that we can help inform the future of our planet. And finally, the evolution of science and science systems. And this is both issues that I mentioned in number 2, issues of more internet platforms, digital publishing, moving to policy spaces for science. But I will also say that this number 4 is also about equity and accessibility of science. And are we looking, as I mentioned maybe earlier, are we looking at our own science systems, the constructs we've created, our disciplines? How are we making potentially barriers to access to scientific engagement or scientific professions from underrepresented groups around the world? Is there discrimination? Is there inequality? And how do we address that better for moving science future around the world? So this is a number 4. You might be hearing this is one of the ones I think is so critically important for us to always pay attention to. And you'll see a little more on the next slide. So again, moving from the big ideas to our action plan, to our 4 domains and our priorities, we then move those further into action plan projects. And when we are moving into projects, how we do this is, again, constant discussions with our membership. Some are leading some of these projects. We are leading. The International Science Council itself has some leadership. We try to find a member or multiple members working to move them forward. You'll see some examples in the next slide, but you can look at the titles here. Again, there's issues around the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, then the digital revolution with for example, making data work with cross-domain grand challenges, and looking at a global digital charter. We have science policy and public discourse. What is the public value of science? What about science in the private sector and science policy interfaces? And as I mentioned, in the evolution of science and science systems, gender equality in science, we actually have a significant global effort on that right now, many of you may know, called Gender Insight. Efforts on combating discrimination, looking at the importance of thinking about and the human rights of refugee and displaced scientists, open science issues, and science publishing. So this covers quite a gamut. We try to find projects where we know we have partnerships, we have information, we have potential funding and support, and we know we will have a timely impact. Next slide. So to go a little deeper on one, this is happening right now. You may have seen it out there on, I retweet it and repost it on LinkedIn whenever I can. In that first domain, one of the ones we're working on with the United Nations Development Program is rethinking human development. It's been 30 years since the first Human Development Report. So in this partnership, we're getting input from all over the world, experts and practitioners in a global dialogue, an interactive dialogue with a multimedia website, stories for coming in, portals to put in information from your members, from your groups, and from individual scientists and scientific groups. And this conversation is going to inform the next definition and understanding of priorities in the human development sphere. Next slide. We also are, this is something I've been working closely with, the Science in Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, looking at, this is a report that recently came out, a technical report. How do we talk globally with the same kinds of definitions and classifications of hazards? This is a collaboration with members such as Public Health England, Integrated Research for Disaster Risk Group, IRDR, and the UN Disaster Risk Reduction Group, UNDRR. We're hoping to implement the 2030 Agenda through support of these interactions. making policy priorities, and programming at all levels of governance. And I will basically say it's looking at how to stop disasters from happening in the first place, or at least mitigate them rather than the reaction. And we know the importance of that given what we're dealing with right now. And of course, this is a launch of a new scientific report on hazards definition, came out in 2020 with 6 targeted recommendations. So we hope this has impact. Next slide. So I mentioned there's a lot of work in the open science and scientific publishing sphere, and this is one with public and private interests and so many different, competing discussions and voices and opinions. And that is what the International Science Council is working to do, to move ideas forward with many voices and find ways we can advance the issue and have science more equitable and accessible to all that information. So we're part of advocating advancing open science as fundamental work to achieving our vision of science as a global public good. And that means open science in the global south and working with UNESCO towards open science recommendations. The project we have in the future of scientific publishing is reviewing the role of publishing in scientific enterprises, consulting with our members, creating a discussion paper that is moving around for people's thoughts before it goes even further into the global commons, creating an international coalition for change, and thinking about how the International Science Council, on behalf of its members, can put forward ideas that actually have impact and they're not just saying what is happening now, but pushing forward to what should be happening in the future, and recognizing that may be controversial, but it's important to take a leadership voice of how we make science as a global public good. Next step. Next slide. And again, I've mentioned a bit of this before, but I will say here are two examples of how the International Science Council is also thinking about the structure of science and discrimination in science and addressing it straight on. So there are processes on the gender equality in science, which is a consultation process, partnerships, looking at designing future activities together with our members. There was just in the Berlin Science Week, ISC Falling Walls, we had a collaboration where we had wonderful roundtables on combating systemic racism and discrimination in science. And we're talking about how to move forward on this. ISC itself has made statements and working forward with our global science organizations in this space. Next slide. Finally, we cannot be a science organization without, of course, head-on thinking about the COVID-19 response. And in fact, as soon as we all went into lockdown in March, that one of the very first things the International Science Council did was talk with its members and create a global science portal for members to add what was going on in their space, and other groups to add what was going on in their space around addressing the COVID-19 crisis. We held webinars on the role of science funders in the time of COVID-19. We had consultative science platforms with IASA on thinking about how sustainability and climate and post-COVID world will all connect. We know they will. We're part of a COVID Education Alliance. We're working with the United Nations, you can see this on this report, on a research roadmap for the recovery, thinking about codes of conduct for scientists working in emergencies such as this and now and in the future, and having webinar series that debate the thinking about the disciplinary developments around COVID. So very much a part of all we're doing. It comes up, of course, in all of our conversation with our members in our governing groups, and trying to think about how we can be prepared for the next, not only managing this pandemic, but how we can do much better in the future. Next slide. And so switching gears just a little bit, of course, we have to do this through networks of communication with our members, and also hubs around the world that we have created. We had in the past, and we're trying to reassess and see how they're working. And of course, those kinds of hubs changes. So we wanted to let you all know that as we're rethinking and revisioning our regional presence and how we work with our hubs around the world, from the ISC Global Secretariat in Paris, that we currently have one of our strategies is towards a future presence for the ISC. It's chapter 6 of our action plan. And we're looking at changes in our regional office in Africa, in Latin America and the Caribbean, and our Asia and the Pacific. And there's a call down in the corner of this slide for interests in hosting these secretariats that will work with as part of the Global Secretariat in moving the ISC strategic action plans forward, engaging with members and bringing new ideas to the whole of the International Science Council. It's 10 December for Africa, 10 December for Latin America and the Caribbean, and then 15th of May for Asia and the Pacific. Next slide. Finally, I wanted to let you know that because our action plan goes to 2021, it's a 3-year action plan, and then their next General Assembly was to be in person in Oman in 2021, but we did recognize that we need to move to virtual. So right now, we are going to have an extraordinary General Assembly early in 2021, and members will be brought into that. And we will have an election of our elections committee for the next governing board, to have names for our next governing board. And then in next fall, we will have our General Assembly, the election of the next ISC governing board, the election of our advisory committees, and with all of the input we've gotten from our first action plan, the development of another 3-year action plan. So we are very busy and really appreciate all the input we get from our members, and of course hope to get more from our future members. I think that's it. I will move it back over to Anne.
Thank you so very much, Melody. Oh, go ahead, Charles.
Can I just briefly, first of all, thank Melody that on this day of Thanksgiving in the USA, you've come and joined our meeting, and you're staying to the end to also answer maybe some questions. We want to give you some thanks for doing that. Also, for the rest of us, as you've seen with the polls, this is an interactive meeting. So even before you can ask questions, we would like to ask you to do a few things. I want to point out that in the chats, we also provide you with the internet sites of where you can go regarding the different subjects that Melody has mentioned. And also one of the challenges we have, which we had yesterday and today the same, some people who are logged in under a name that is not their own. I think Lizzie Sayer for one is one, because we have 4 people under that name. So I'm going to challenge you to find the right place where you can change your name, which is next to your name, I think, and then you can change your name to your proper name or any name you want to use. And that way we can have a bit of differentiation between the Lizzies. In the meantime, I'd like to ask Anne if she can go ahead and give her presentation about ISC.
Thank you so much, Charles. And thank you again, Melody. Like Charles said, if you have any questions on the action plan, the projects that were just mentioned, or other comments, please just hang on to those questions for a few more minutes, because in the last couple of slides, I would like to present to you very much the focus on how the ISC collaborates, particularly with its members, and what are the opportunities for engagement and participation for the ISC membership in ISC activities. And of course, the ISC General Assembly and the Extraordinary General Assembly in February is one of the core opportunities to participate in decision-making related to, for example, the ISC governance or the scientific strategy. But apart from the General Assembly, which you know takes place only every 3 years, there are many reasons and opportunities to connect and collaborate with us, because the members of the International Science Council are at the very heart of this organization. And we welcome and encourage your participation in any of our projects and in any of our activities, in anything that we do really, depending on your organization's interests and your organization's priorities. And the more our members are involved and the more we hear from you, the better we can represent your voices and be truly the global voice for science. And maybe just to start off with, I want to point out some of the general benefits of ISC membership, and these aspects listed here, we are hearing from many of you is what you value about being a member of this organization. It is the internationality and diversity of the ISC, our convening power and ability to help close knowledge gaps by bringing together a wide range of scientific disciplines from both the natural and the social sciences, and being able to connect academies and unions and their members, and how this helps you to achieve your organizational priorities. Another very much valued aspect of our work is our very strong relationship with the United Nations and several of its bodies, like Melody pointed out earlier during the presentation. And please be ensured that we're constantly working on strengthening this relationship. And I'll speak more about your organization's possibilities to be involved in UN initiatives in a little bit. I just want to mention two other aspects, which is your continuous access to updates on international scientific developments via our website, our social media channels, our newsletter, our membership updates, and so forth, and to international opportunities such as calls for nominations, consultations, expert groups, and many more. We acknowledge that several of our members are interested in funding opportunities, and this might be one of the few things that the ISC cannot directly offer, since we're not a funding organization. However, we do want to use our position as a convener to support you in this regard. And we do already advertise and share with you funding opportunities of partners as they become available. Melody also mentioned the T2S and the LIRA 2030 funding programs, but we're also aiming to facilitate a series of workshops during the coming year to cover aspects like developing funding proposals and looking at case studies and best practices. So stay tuned for these opportunities. On this next slide, we have listed some of the more tangible benefits of ISC membership to give you the full spectrum of possibilities and opportunities as a member of the ISC. And the first row here applies to our voting members only. You'll know that our members adhere to the Council in 3 different categories, either as a national member organization or as an international disciplinary focused union or association. Members of both these categories have full voting rights, and the third ISC membership category are our affiliate members who pay a much lower membership fee than national members or unions and are not entitled to vote on decisions related to governance, finances, or the scientific strategy, who are not entitled to nominate and vote for candidates of the ISC governing board and its advisory bodies, and who are not entitled to endorse new membership applications. But when it comes to collaboration, access, and publicity, all members in all membership categories are equal in their possibilities. For example, to collaborate with us in the frame of the action plan or other emerging initiatives, as well as with, of course, our members and also with any of our affiliated bodies or partners, and in the frame of our work with the United Nations. I have briefly touched on our members' continuous access to updates on international scientific developments and to international opportunities, including funding opportunities, but I also want to point out our support for knowledge exchange among ISC members. I will come back to this in just a minute. And apart from the ISC General Assembly, ISC members have access to and receive updates on other relevant events within the scientific community, including events, of course, facilitated by us, by the ISC. Lastly, I want to mention a very important aspect that I would like all of you to consider more closely and on a regular basis, which is our support for publicity. And what I mean by that is that we are delighted and stand ready to amplify and share with other ISC members and with the wider scientific community your events, your vacancies, your calls for papers or nominations, your publications, your initiatives, and your stories. And we're very happy to feature your events on our events page on the website, to include your vacancies on our vacancies page on the website, to share your opportunities via our newsletter and via our membership update emails, to amplify your stories and initiatives in the form of a feature article on our homepage. And of course, we will aim to share all of the above on our various social media channels. So please make use of these amplification opportunities. And now you might think, well, this all sounds great, but how do I do this, and whom do I actually contact at the ISC regarding all of these opportunities for collaboration? And you will hopefully be delighted to know that the ISC has one dedicated focal point to liaise with the ISC membership, and that's me, the ISC membership liaison officer. So whether you want to get involved in a project within our action plan, or you want your organization's biotext on the ISC membership online directory to be updated, whether you wish to report an update for our contact database because your organization's president or chair has changed, or whether you wish to share with us one of your upcoming events so we can share it on our website or via social media, please do not hesitate to contact me at any time for any of these matters and any aspects related to your membership with the ISC. I very much hope that you have been receiving our regular membership update emails, which we send out about 2 or 3 times a month, in which we inform the membership about the latest developments, events, and other opportunities within the ISC family and beyond. And I would like to quickly do another live poll, if I may, to understand how useful or not you find these membership update emails. And you'll see the questions have popped up in front of you now. And I'll give you just a minute to go ahead and choose your answers. And multiple choice is possible again, if you want to choose multiple options. So please go ahead and put in your answers. I already see a very strong inclination there, which is very nice to see. So many of you find them very useful. Well, that's very good to know. If you ever have any comments on the content, or if you want to contribute with any feedback, please do let me know. And please also let me know if you have not been receiving these emails, because we will share some very important notifications regarding the upcoming Extraordinary General Assembly in February, for example, over the course of the coming weeks. And I very much hope to see you all online during the assembly. It will be a great opportunity to connect and to network with other members. Thank you very much for your feedback via the poll. Lastly, I want to draw your attention to a page on our website, the ISC Membership Notice Board, which is a dedicated page that we set up just a few months ago, really, for all updates, notifications, and other membership-related information to be in one central place. And if you don't mind, I would just like to launch another quick poll to understand how many of you have been visiting this notice board, how many of you know about it, and how many have been using the page, and how useful you find it. So if you could just take another minute to choose your answers in the poll. So for those of you who have ticked no because I didn't know about it, I'm sorry to hear that, but I hope that you will learn something new in the coming minutes. And for the person who chose yes, but the content could be structured better, please do contact me and give me feedback, because we're constantly trying to improve the notice board. So very happy to know that some people visit it regularly, and good to know that that you visit regularly, and some people have visited once. Okay, well, thank you very much for your feedback. So I want to encourage you very much to visit this page frequently, because we update the information contained on a very regular basis, and it really gathers key links and documents relevant to ISC members. Let me just share my browser with you so that I can show you how to access the membership notice board. From our homepage, council.science, you want to navigate to the Our Members section in the top menu. And when you click on that, you just have to scroll down to a sidebar that comes up here, Membership Notice Board. But before I go here, let me just point out a couple of other sidebars that might be of interest to you. You will know that on the Membership Online Directory, we list all of our members, and each member has actually an individual page with a small bio text about your organization and the link to your website. So if you ever wish to update the text contained on this page, please let me know. When you click on the sidebar, Keep Us Up to Date, you'll find an online form in order to update us on certain changes within your organization. For example, change in staff. You can let us know about your upcoming events, potential vacancies. You can, of course, also just simply communicate that to me by email, but just letting you know that this form is available as well for you to complete if you have a lot of information to share. Lastly, when you click on News from ISC members, you will be redirected to a page showing a selection of our news items, namely only the ones related to one or more of our members. So this might be an interesting section for you to have a look at as well. It's just an opportunity for us to gather all of the items that are directly linked to members. But let's have a closer look at the membership notice board then. So at the top of this page, you will find just a little explainer about the information contained on this page. And scrolling down a little bit further, you'll find a section that deals with the current opportunities for ISC members. And as I mentioned, this section, just like all the other sections on this page, are updated on a very regular basis. So for instance, the current opportunities include participating in this virtual meeting, which I'll take down after our meeting today, and another members only session that we're organizing in December, a knowledge sharing session regarding online meetings and virtual conferences. And a couple of members have contacted me and said that they would really like to have a knowledge sharing session on this particular topic going virtual. So we have invited a guest speaker for this session, or for these two sessions, and also various representatives of our members to share knowledge regarding going virtual. So I very much hope to welcome you to these sessions. At the moment, we're also asking our voting members to submit your statements of support for the current membership applicants. In addition, there is a possibility to be involved in our project on rethinking human development. I hope you've all seen our multimedia website and our publication, Conversations on Rethinking Human Development. Both were just launched 2 weeks ago on World Science Day. And as Melody mentioned earlier, members are invited to express their interest in hosting a regional presence of the ISC Secretariat. And members may also nominate candidates for the 2021 ISC Awards Program. This will be the first edition of our awards program. It was just launched this year. You can find out more regarding your involvement in Global Science TV here, and if your organization would like to make a submission to the ISC COVID-19 Global Science Portal and share with us your statements, your newest findings, position papers, or other news related to the pandemic, please click on this particular item. And lastly, members are invited to contribute to our Ocean Decade blog series. A bit further down, you may find some relevant quick links that might be helpful and interesting. And below those quick links, you will currently find 6 different sections of information. And I want to just take a few more minutes to briefly introduce these different sections to you. So under key ISC dates and events, you'll find all upcoming events facilitated by the ISC and events where the ISC is invited as a speaker or as a partner. So please feel free to join these upcoming webinars. As I pointed out, we have the knowledge sharing session on 8th and 9th of December. And you'll also find information here on the next upcoming, for example, governing board meetings or meetings of our advisory committee, and of course the dates for the general assemblies. Under key ISC documents, you'll find relevant publications, ISC publications, such as the statutes and rules of procedure, the action plan, and also our set of logos if you ever need these for communications purposes. So this is just a small selection of our publications that we thought might be of particular interest to members, and you don't have to know how to navigate the entire website or go through the entire website to find these publications. In the section Calls for Nominations and Participation within the ISC family, this is where you will find links to ongoing regional and global consultations, calls for nominations, competitions, vacancies, and also funding opportunities. And these are from our members, shared from our members and posted here, and also the ISC family, for example, our affiliated bodies, including, of course, partners such as the United Nations. And again, I encourage you to please share with me any opportunities you would like to share with other members so we can publish it here on this page. The membership knowledge sharing platform relates back to my earlier mention of the ISC helping to close knowledge gaps and facilitating knowledge sharing among ISC members. We have gathered here contributions mostly from our members on several topics such as international science and science advice, several COVID-19 platforms and campaigns, documents and other contributions regarding discrimination, Further down, you'll find a section on ethics and science and sustainability. We've gathered some, and then at the end, we've gathered some other platforms. We have recently added this other section, podcast, webinar series, and e-learning courses. And we are gathering here the different podcasts from ISC members and affiliated bodies, webinar series, or e-learning courses. So please let us know if there's any of these that you're facilitating that we can add here as well. And lastly, there's a section where you see the latest additions to the ISC membership family. So these are the members that, the most recent members that joined the organization. So you see the notice board fulfills many purposes, and it really acts as a two-track platform where we share information with each other. And if you ever have any suggestions regarding the notice board or would like to make a contribution, of course, please do contact me. I hope this all gives you a very good overview and an idea of the various possibilities and ways that we collaborate with our members and our members collaborate with us. And I hope it became very clear that we stand ready to support you, to explore synergies, and to work together to advance science as a global public good. And to finish off, allow me to just launch another quick poll to ask you about your satisfaction regarding our membership outreach and our communication with members, including the membership update emails, virtual discussions like this one, but also our newsletter, our communication via our website, social media, and our engagement with members in the frame of the action plan. So please just take another minute to choose your answers here. Thank you so much. That's looking really good from our side. Looks like many of you are quite satisfied with our outreach. The people who are not satisfied, if you could contact me personally, I'd be happy to talk bilaterally and invite you for a meeting to receive further feedback. That would be really helpful. And again, I just want to emphasize, please do not hesitate to contact me, and I look very much forward to being in touch with you. And with that, I'll hand back over to Charles, who will be happy to take your questions, I think. Charles?
Yes. Thank you very much, Anne, for doing this. And I do urge people who do not know the site and who haven't been there often to have a look, because it really gives you a lot of opportunities. And also, as Anne said, I think it's very important for us to know what you think could be done better. Please inform us on that, because we want to provide you with the best website possible. Now I would like to kick off the questioning part. You can either ask questions in the chat if you want, or you can raise your hand, the little blue hand on the right bottom corner. Or you can just speak up if you want to do that. That is fine too. I'll start off with a question that was received earlier. I think it was from we received a question from the National Research Council Canada about the GA, and I think that's a good point and a good question to start with. So I'm not sure if you're here, Terry, but I'll answer because I think it makes sense for everyone to know about this. The General Assembly is held once every 3 years. So the first General Assembly was held in 2018 in Paris, and the next one will be held, as Melody has pointed out, virtually in October 2021. And the idea of this General Assembly is to bring all the members together and to get an update on where we stand, where ISC is, where the programs and the projects are going, how the action plan is getting along, and also for the present governing board to get a chance to indicate what they've been doing and what their aim is for the future. also, of course, and sometimes more importantly, people will be wanting to elect a new governing board for the next 3 years. So that will be part of the General Assembly as well. There's also going to be a discussion on the budgets for the next 3 years. And included in that is a discussion on the dues system that ISC uses. For the rest, if people, either members, well, especially members, would like to change something in the statutes or raise anything, that can of course also be done at the General Assembly. The draft agenda will be sent around at least 6 months in advance, so that will be probably around March next year, and it's always allowed for members to add or to give input on that sense. So that's just a very brief on the General Assembly. Maybe then I can move to John Young from INASP, who has raised his hand, and he would like to ask a question. Please, John, go ahead.
Great, thank you very much indeed, and it's very exciting to be here. We were actually set up by ICSU 25 years ago, then became an independent organisation and have recently rejoined as an affiliate. And it's great to be back and to see such a high degree of convergence between your goals and our goals. We operate at very different ends of the spectrum. I think we're much more at sort of field level, country level, particularly in the global south, working with early career researchers, and you're much more at the sort of global level, international level, engaging much more with global policy processes. So we're hoping you can help us to bridge that gap. I've got a couple of questions and then a sort of a query. One is, you talk about transformative action, and some of the examples you gave, I can quite clearly see how they could be transformative, particularly the work looking at what does human development mean, and if can reconceptualize what that means and then what needs to be done to do that. So that's good, but maybe you could elaborate a bit more on that. I'd like to know what's happening with the global call on priorities for science for the SDGs, which we submitted something to, and forgive me if I've missed something on that. And the other thing, a slight bone I'd like to pick with you, I was at in August, a meeting on the African Platform for Science Advisors, and a thing came up on the screen which said, indigenous knowledge is not science. And that made me feel slightly uncomfortable. I think indigenous knowledge is a really, really important part of the kind of spectrum of knowledge that we need to take into account when we're making decisions. And it looked a bit as if it had been ruled out by the council. So I'd be interested in your comments on that.
Melody, yeah, Melody, can I ask you to answer?
Melody would, no, I think that was in, I do not know why that was there. We have had many conversations. I work in spaces, and many people on the council work on spaces that we work very closely and respectfully and learning from indigenous knowledge and ways of knowing. That is, so I work in the Arctic and with indigenous communities in the US. So that may have been there because of I don't know how some of these are organized. We are a big distributed organization, but there have been, just so you know, there have been many conversations not only on our governing board about this importance in systems of science and how we move forward, especially as we connect with communities and policy that has real impact. We must have that knowledge and work co-design with that knowledge. And then I will say I'm also the ISC, I'm a representative on some United Nations groups that are specifically looking at the importance of diverse ways of knowing to move forward. So I will say it's a high priority and very seriously taken. So I hope that changes your impression.
Very good, that's hugely reassuring. Thank you very much.
Melody, if I can just add to that, John, I'm just going to share a link here with you in the chat, which is a recent blog from ours called Transformation to Sustainability, Integrating Indigenous and Western Knowledge Systems for Water Management and Governance. So I hope that reassures you as well. I'll share that in the chat now.
Okay, John, I hope that answered your questions. If not, let us know. And then I would also like to move to a question that Jennifer Veitch has asked within the chat. Are member applications accepted at any time, or are there deadlines? That's a good question. I think we are bound by the deadlines that the statutes request us to get applications in, and applications also include, in this sense, upgrades that you mentioned 2 months in advance of the governing board meetings. And I must say, pre-COVID, the governing board meetings were scheduled quite differently than they are now. We used to have 2 meetings a year, and now we're having a lot more meetings because of Zoom. It's easier to meet for the governing board, and it's a lot more efficient to meet more often. So in that sense, the deadline is also not as applicable, because I would just advise you to hand it in at whatever time you would like. If you want to do it in time for the General Assembly, I would say it would make sense to do that at least 6 to 4 months before the start of the General Assembly in October, because we will need time to look into that. And in the past, but I'm not sure how we'll deal with it this time. In the past, it has happened that those applications will then be dealt with at the General Assembly rather than in advance by the governing board, because it's, of course, in the end, always the members that decide on membership and membership applications. So if you want the governing board to take the lead in that, I would be early rather than late next year. And otherwise, it will be referred to the General Assembly meeting. But of course, you can then be present there, but there might be a chance that you do not get, that you will not be allowed to become member, although I'm not afraid for that. I hope, Jennifer, that answers your question. Great. Then, John, I see you have your, yes. Ruth, before we go to you, please, can we answer John's question? Melody, can I ask you to look into the question, what is happening with the submissions on priorities for science for the SDGs?
So those will, I have to say, I'll have to take that and get back, because my understanding is that those submissions are going into I would believe on the Committee for Science Planning. And so I would want to connect with that group and find out and get back to you specifically of where that is, because that's not through my committee, although we should know, and I apologize, I don't have an answer for you.
Melody, if I may add to that, John, we've received over 250 contributions to that call. So you can imagine we're currently busy trying to group the answers and analyze the answers so we can clearly see the priorities and group them, so we can recommend something, or present a preliminary analysis to the committee. And like Melody said, then it'll go in the proper evaluation process. But at the moment, we're busy sorting out the raw data, which is a huge task. But of course, there will be more updates shared with all members once we advance, on really analyzing the results of that survey. But thank you very much for making a contribution.
Thank you, John. Then I would like to go to Ruth Cooper. Her question, Ruth, thank you for that. The question is, are there plans to edit the web content on ISC's work with the UN? I would like to ask one of our communications team, maybe Anne or Lizzie, to give us some insight on that.
Thanks, Charles. Yes, the website is a huge task for us. We are constantly trying to improve the problem is, or not the problem, but the challenge is the organization is so complex, and we're trying, on one hand, we don't want to double the content, but on the other hand, we want to create different entry points for people to find the information, because sometimes it's quite challenging if we have everything just sitting in one place. It's, just challenging to find the information. So Ruth, I think you even mentioned that before, and yes, this is on our to-do list. I think we have already done some work on that, and there's a new page, so I will send you that. I just have to look in what place that is. But Ruth, yes, that is on our list. And if you have any other feedback on the website, that's always welcome.
Ruth, I hope that answers your question. Thank you. Then I would like to move to Augusta Maria. Hello, how are you? Good that you've joined our meeting. I thought you were at the meeting yesterday as well, but maybe that was someone else using your name. Good to...
No, it was me.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Well,
Thank you, but I have to repeat a lot of information.
Yes.
I'm in a training.
Yes. Lovely. Thank you very much. And it's very nice of you to join twice even. And I like your proposal that you put in the chat. I think that's very useful for us, and we will take it at heart. I can just read it out, or I would like to. I see you've sent it to everyone, so please have a look in the chat where Augusta Maria indicates that it would be good to introduce some wording regarding emerging topic areas that are to become relevant priorities in the next post-COVID period. And I think that's very good, and we will take it at heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you.
If I may just add to that, Charles, so we have a dedicated COVID liaison team at HQ headquarters, and we meet weekly to discuss, the newest findings and the new initiatives that are coming up and our involvement. And so we're now kind of looking at that second phase, which is why during the last membership update, we've asked members to once again have a look at the COVID portal and see what we have published there, what kind of contributions we've published there from your organizations. And if you have any new contributions on the second phase regarding vaccines and so on, this would be very much appreciated if you can share that with us so we can get into that second phase.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm looking, I don't see any other hands at the moment. I'm going through the chat. I see a chat from Mohammed. Thank you very much, Mohammed. I think what you are mentioning might make sense as something that we can deal with offline. I'm not sure if it's something that we can discuss here, but you've raised your hand, so maybe you can say something briefly about this.
Yeah.
You are muted, Mohammed.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Speaker. I would like to share with you some very important environment maritime issue in Red Sea. There is Yemen oil tanker get some problem with environment. So I would like to know how could ISC share with the UN, or I don't know what can, since ISC is very interested in science research. So what is your idea, and how can we share this issue?
Thank you, Mohammed. I think, again, it would be good if you could send us your call for paper, maybe to Anne, because you have her contact details. And then we can try to find a way to either put it on the site or follow up on this.
Okay.
That would make
that will be
make
nice.
Sense.
Yes.
You have Anne's email, right?
Not yet. I just share you in the chat.
Okay.
Mohammed, you have my email, so maybe you can share that.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can be in touch via email again. That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you, Mohammed. Then I would like like to go to Marta Farsang, as asked, could we briefly run through the process for nominations of elections committee members? So that is a good point. And the election committee members will be elected at the electronic and extraordinary GA in February. And these members will be elected from a list that is going to be provided by the governing board members. And the governing board members will provide that list in December. So it will be half December that the members will receive the list of potential election committee members, and then the members can elect their preferred candidates before or during the Extraordinary General Assembly in February. I hope that clarifies that process for you, Marta.
Yes, thank you very much. That is indeed helpful, Charles. Just a really quick question. How does, and we can talk offline, of course, about that. How does one perhaps flag an interesting individual for that committee to the governing committee?
It would be very good if indeed we take that offline. Well, and you can email me. I will provide you with my email address, and then I can bring it forward to the board.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Then I'm looking at I don't see any raised hands. And then I'm looking at, is there any other question at the moment from anyone? Sorry for this haphazard way, but I'm trying to cover everything. At the moment, I don't see any questions.
I think Jennifer mentioned that she finds it a bit hard on the COVID portal to navigate because the content is buried below layers. And Jennifer, we've had so much content on this portal, and we're trying to structure it. Maybe you can specify what kind of information you're looking for, so we can help you find that information. We've tried to group it a little bit and differentiate between the contributions from our members and contribution from from others, from our partners. And then there's also a section on webinars, for example, to have that's a section separate. And then there is a section on scientific debates, where we publish contributions on different topics. And maybe Lizzie and Jenya want to come in and give some more information on that if you have anything to add. But Jennifer, let me know if you're looking for anything specific.
So I'm going to leap in. It wasn't that I was looking for information that I needed, but I was looking for information we had sent to you, and it's there, and that's great, except that I'm wondering whether a member of the public would think, oh, I wonder what the members of the ISC are saying, or would they think, I wonder what anybody with some knowledge is saying on this topic. So I like the idea of the groupings on debates, that makes sense. But for announcements that are about sources of information, which was true for the CIE one, I wonder if a topic organization rather than an organization by the source of the post might facilitate people finding it.
Point well taken, Jennifer. Thank you for that. I think we're going to take this to the COVID liaison committee and talk about that, because the structuring of the global COVID-19 science portal is like an ongoing issue, and we're also at the moment trying to find out how to, what to really do with the content and take it to the next level. But it's really challenging because we have so many contributions there. So thank you very much for that very valuable point. I'll take that forward, and I'll get back to you with any updates in regards to that. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Okay. If no one else has any questions at this point, and of course you can always mail us individually if you do have questions. Then I would like to thank you all for being present here at this time. And we have enjoyed it very, very much. I hope it has been helpful. If you have more questions about the information that has been provided, please contact us. We're there for you. And I would like to thank you very much and wish you a very good rest of the day, dependent on where you are, if that's going to be a long day or an evening. But thank you all.
Thank you so much, Charles. And I just want to repeat, whoever is not receiving our membership update emails, please let me know, because there's going to be some very important information coming through on the general assemblies. And the other point I wanted to make, please go to the membership notice board, because that's where you find all the current information that is important to ISC members. And lastly, just a reminder to join our knowledge sharing session on online meetings and virtual conferences on 8th or 9th of December. There's 2 different times to accommodate your time zone, and we're looking very much forward to seeing you there. It'll be an informal meeting like this, where other ISC members share their experience. And like I said, we'll also have a guest speaker to talk about how to go virtual. So I'm looking very much forward to seeing you all there.
Thank you. Bye-bye all. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.